Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. A few videos back I told you I wanted to make a Q&A video and I received enough questions, so let's answer all your questions today. So this is an excellent question because recently I've been analyzing my training data. It's not too complicated, but I just calculated how much I ran for each year. So I will show you that on the screen. I started running in 2017 and I wasn't really running consistent. Over the year I did around 700k, so that's 14 kilometers per week on average, but I ran for a couple of months and there were also breaks in between that I didn't run for a couple of months, either because I had an injury or I just didn't run. I don't know why exactly. It was not consistent. That went on as well in 2018, did around the same amount of mileage, and then became a little bit more serious in 2019, but until 2021 it was just sporadic running, not really consistent. So in 2021, as you can see, I became really serious, and then until 2023, it was my biggest year so far. I became more consistent and gradually the volume became higher. So yeah, I had to be a little bit patient, I guess. 2017 until now is a long time, so yeah, it doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, so this is also an excellent question because I've also been analyzing my training data for all my marathon attempts, like my road marathon PR attempts, where I wanted to run a fast time. So I also included the first marathon I ran, although I didn't really plan to run that one. But in the 12 weeks before that marathon, I ran 39k on average per week. That's what was needed for me to run the marathon, 39k per week. Could have done more probably, but I ran it in 3 hours and 25 minutes, so it took me 40k per week basically to run that time. Before my first marathon I was running for 1 year, so I started in 2017 and I ran it in 2018. So it took me 1 year to build up. So I've also been analyzing all the weeks and the training blocks before my other marathons that I did afterwards, so I thought I would show you that as well. So after my first marathon I did 4 serious attempts to improve my time, besides all the other marathons I did in training runs, like the slower ones. So for these 4 ones I calculated how much I ran in the 12 weeks before each marathon. And in 2021 I ran a 3 hour 8-minute marathon, and as you can see my average weekly mileage in the 12 weeks before the marathon was 90k per week. I didn't do any speed work at all. The only thing I did was a faster half marathon a few weeks before the marathon. I ran that in 1 hour and 29 minutes. But other than that, I was running easy for all of my runs, which was around 5 minutes per kilometer pace. And then somehow I was able to run that 3 hour 8-minute marathon. And then 1 year later, in 2022, I ran a 2 hour 48 marathon. A bit more volume, so as you can see, 115k per week. Also did some more speed work, so I became a bit more serious. Then in 2023 I ran 2 marathons. The first one was in April, the Rotterdam Marathon. I ran 2 hours and 42 minutes. Again, more volume, 127k per week. And a lot more speed work and marathon specific workouts, etc. to practice the pace that I wanted to run during the marathon. Then my last serious attempt was a few months ago at the end of 2023. When I ran a 2 hour 38 marathon. Again, more volume, 151 kilometers per week. Because it was actually shortly after a 100k run, so I was training for that and then did the marathon a few weeks after that one. So as you can see, there is a strong correlation between running faster times and running higher volume. So I have always believed in that volume is king if you want to improve your time on the marathon distance. And it's also reflected in my own training as well. Of course it depends on what your goal is. If you just want to finish the marathon, then I guess you could do it without any training, if you really set your mind to it. But it's not going to be an enjoyable experience, I think. So as you could see, for my first marathon I did around 40k per week. I think that's a good amount if you just want to finish a marathon in a reasonably good time. So around the distance of a marathon each week, I would say, is maybe the minimum. Okay, I used to do a lot of heart rate training, low heart rate training. I started doing that after I ran for a few years, and I was always going out really fast, and then I injured myself, and at some point I thought I need to change something. If I want to run in the long term, I want to build up a good base, an aerobic base. So I started looking into low heart rate training. So I found this method, it's called the methadone method, where you kind of calculate your maximum heart rate and then extract a certain number from it, which is around 75% of your max heart rate. So I did most of my runs around that heart rate. So for me it was below 150 beats per minute. I started doing that. I had to slow down significantly, of course, because I was always going out too fast on a really high heart rate. So I slowed down and did that for a really long time. That was before my 3-hour, 8-minute marathon. I was only doing low heart rate training. So I paid attention to my heart rate on every run to make sure I wasn't going above 150. But at some point I kind of knew what feeling belonged to a certain heart rate, so I didn't have to look at it anymore. So right now I'm not really training on heart rate. I do look at my heart rate after I finish the run, like my average heart rate. Right now my easy runs are around 140 and my maximum heart rate is around 200. My paces are usually around 5 minutes per kilometer, 5:10, something like that if I run easy. It used to be a bit faster back in the Netherlands because of course the climate is different. There are no hills in the Netherlands, so at some point my easy pace was 4:30, 4:40, always somewhere between 4:30 and 5 minutes per kilometer. So right now it's a bit slower, but it's also because of the different environment. Yeah, this is a good question. I do go out early. Usually I wake up at 6 and then I go out for a run at 6:30. So I used to run everything fasted. I did that a few years ago as well, but then I ran 10 Ks in the morning, so I would be back in 50 minutes. So it wasn't really necessary to eat something. But at some point I started doing half marathons before my breakfast, and right now even 25K or something. Yeah, that changed my mind a little bit about eating before a run. Right now I think it's more beneficial for me to eat something, even if it's small, like a banana or some rice crackers, I don't know, something small with carbs. Something simple. So now I always eat something before I run because I don't want to empty myself completely during a 2-hour run in the morning. So I'm not sure what you mean with general routines, but I guess I have some routines in the sense that I eat the same things throughout the week. Like I eat some eggs every day, some oatmeal, things like that. And I try to avoid ultra-processed foods for most of my diet. Not for everything, but maybe, let's say, try to eat 90% whole foods and then 10% ultra-processed or processed foods. And yes, I do practice my calorie intake for races. I usually do that a few weeks before a race, where I try to simulate as much as possible. So even the meal the night before, the timing of the meal, then I wake up at the same time as I would do for the race. I have the same breakfast at the same time. Try to simulate as much as possible, and then I do like a training run that would be 50% of my race. So right now I'm training for a 100K, so maybe I would do a 50K and then take the exact amount of nutrition that I would take during the 100K, relatively speaking. So yes, I do practice that to make sure I don't have any stomach issues on race day. I think that's a very important aspect of running ultramarathons. I have mixed feelings about Strava. I used to put everything on Strava, and I think it's really interesting to see other people's training as well. Also professional runners, they put a lot of Strava as well, so that's interesting to see how they train. Maybe I can learn something from them. So in that sense I think Strava is really nice. But well, when I'm injured I don't look at Strava. That doesn't help me at all. I would push myself too soon, would ask more of my body than it's capable of. I would probably injure myself again, so I avoid Strava when I'm injured. And right now I don't post everything on Strava. I chose middle ground because some people have said to me that they think it's really motivating if I post everything. And some people said it's actually demotivating because it is so much that they cannot relate to it anymore. So I thought, okay, let's use the middle ground. I'm going to post races and some interesting training runs, but not everything. And I also kind of like the idea of training in the dark without anyone seeing it, because one of the reasons I'm running is for the mental challenge as well. And if you put everything on Strava, you will know during a run that people will see it, and it becomes easier to finish the run. So if I want more mental challenge, it's better for me to not post everything, so that I just do it for myself and not for external validation. Where do I live? Well, right now I live in Bandina, which is a town below Sydney, but that's not where I usually live. I have lived in the Netherlands before I came here for my whole life. I'm not sure if I will live in the Netherlands for very long if I come back from Australia, because my wife and I are thinking about moving to another country, but yeah, we're not sure where we would go, so that's not really specific yet. But yeah, usually I live in the Netherlands, that's where I'm from. I made a video about this a few weeks ago, about my running story, but in short, I used to be a very unhealthy student, and at some point I realized that I wanted to change something, and somehow I bought running shoes. It was kind of random, so I don't really know why I got into running. It just seemed the most accessible option to change something with my life. And then I got kind of obsessed with running, as you can tell by my videos. So that's how I got into running, kind of random. That is a nice question. In some sense, every ultramarathon or marathon is a special or memorable experience, because every one of them has a different story. You meet other people. They are all unique experiences, but if I had to pick one, I would say my first 100K race last year at the end of 2023, because the whole training block went perfect and the whole race as well. I just felt really strong. Even though I fell like after the first 10K, which always happens during ultras. But then it just continued and I felt really strong. The nutrition was perfect, didn't have any stomach issues or energy issues or dehydration issues. So just the fact that I felt really strong during 100K of running made it a memorable experience for me. I was actually kind of sad that I reached the finish line, because I wanted to continue, or my body just wanted to continue running. So I will probably do that in the future, continue to run after 100K, but right now I'm going to do my second 100K first. And then connected to that 100K is my fastest marathon time yet, which I ran 4 weeks after that race, which is also a memorable experience because it was only 4 weeks after the 100K and my body recovered really well. So I thought, let's just try to run a PR marathon. I reached all my goals this year, so no pressure. Just went for it and I succeeded, so that was really nice. And a friend of mine joined me on his mountain bike and he had a speaker with music. And it was a really small local marathon, so we were just there with the two of us listening to some techno music while I was running a PR marathon without any pressure, but that was great. My age is 28, yeah, that's a short answer, turning 29 in September. I'm actually looking forward to being 30 because I think the time period between 30 and 40 seems to me like a great period because it has a nice balance between having enough life experience but also being really energetic and having a lot of energy. So I'm looking forward to that. My watch says 64. I don't really look at it, to be honest. I'm not sure if it's accurate. Also, if I look at my race prediction times on my watch, it's also not accurate because, for example, the prediction for the 10K says 38 minutes, but a few weeks ago I ran it somewhere in the 35 minutes, so it's not really accurate. I never did an official VO2 max test, but my watch says 64. Never used running poles, also because I didn't do a lot of technical stuff. Maybe I could have used them during my race in New Zealand at 50K a while ago, but I never really felt that I needed running poles. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use them in the future. Maybe I will try it at some point. Yeah, this is a good question. Maybe you're wondering, how is this guy able to run so much and travel to Australia and New Zealand? Well, it's kind of a special period in my life. I work as a teacher at a university in the Netherlands. And last year I asked my supervisor if it would be possible to work remotely for 1 semester, which is 6 months. And then somehow she was able to arrange that for me. So now I'm working from Australia with a job in the Netherlands, and I'm only doing things that I can do online. So that's a special period in my life. I'm really grateful for that opportunity as well. So yeah, I work as a teacher. I think I should do more strength work. I do it sporadically. So throughout the year on average, I do quite some strength work, but not consistent. So I always try to be more consistent. In terms of cycling, back in the Netherlands I used to cycle besides running. Right now I'm only focusing on running because I don't really have a road bike here. I have access to a mountain bike, but don't really like mountain biking. So if I can, I complement my training with cycling, but right now I'm only running. So in terms of stretching and mobility, I also want to be more consistent in that part, in that area, which I'm not right now. I don't do it in a preventive way, like with a routine. I only do it when I feel that something in my legs is tight, then I start to stretch it, do some mobility work in that area. So yeah, I want to be more consistent, but somehow my body is able to deal with the amount of training that I do. I booked a sports massage last week, and the massage therapist was actually surprised about how good my legs felt when I told him how much I run every week. So I think that's a positive sign. So somehow I don't really need it, which I'm surprised about myself as well. So yeah, not consistent. Every now and then I do some stretching, some mobility work. What keeps me motivated during ultramarathons? That's a good question. I'm not entirely sure, but somehow if I have something in my mind, I just don't stop before I reach that goal. So I would only stop an ultramarathon if I have to step aside because of a very big injury or something is wrong with my health. But I just don't stop before I reach the goal. So that's what motivates me, I guess. Just reaching the finish line. Also, now that I'm making videos about it, that's kind of a motivator as well, because I want to make nice videos. So I think that helps as well, but it's mostly like an internal voice in my head that don't want me to stop before I reach my goal. So somehow I'm able to motivate myself during running that I don't want to stop and I want to continue even when it gets hard. So these were all my answers to your questions. I hope my answers were interesting. So if you have any questions left, let me know. I can always do a second part. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video.